All right, well, live good afternoon, everyone. Once again, welcome to another Google Plus Hangout for our channel's Beam. This week, we're looking at how technology can aid the conduct of future elections in Nigeria. Of course, we've seen how technology was deployed during the 2015 general elections, but people, even INEC, is also saying that they need to deploy more of technology in the coming elections. We have two elections coming on this year, major elections. We have one in Ondo State, and then we have another one in Edo State. But let's just first of all look at how we can help, suggest ways that INEC can implement in ensuring that technology is well deployed during the next elections and it does benefit the general populace and INEC as well. But to help me look at this, I have Fatu Oguche. Thanks for calling. You're calling from Nigeria's Federal Capital Territory. That's Abuja. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me.
Sure. We also have Olamide Egbayele. Olamide is in Nigeria's commercial capital, Lagos. Good afternoon, and thanks for coming on board. All right. We really can't hear Olamide.
It's nice.
Okay, great. You kind of froze for a while, but then you're back on now. We can hear you. We also see you guys watching on our YouTube channel. Thank you for joining us as well. You can also be part of the program. Just send your tweets to our channels, Beam, or to our channels TV. Olamide, let me just start with you. How do you think we can go about, introducing more technology to the conduct of elections? I mean, in Nigeria.
I can say that firstly, we're making progress, but we're a little far behind. I think first of all, we need to educate the Nigerian populace. INEC needs to do more. We need to invest more in our local. I'm putting local in quotation marks, our local programmers here in Nigeria. A lot of people are doing a lot of things. I was opportune to meet the guy who developed the software that was used at the E-Nigerian conference last year. And I can tell you that even within INEC, there's still quite a number of INEC staff were opposed to using technology. So awareness has to start from within. That's from within INEC. INEC has to up their game, as to improving their ICT, the capacity of the ICT staff. So it is only what they know that they can, pass on to other people and all that. So there's still a lot of ignorance around the use of technology. I think that INEC should focus on equipping their staff with enough capacity and enough knowledge to make them understand that technology is not to harm anybody or to take the job out of their hands and all that. It's just to improve efficiency and the conduct of elections in Nigeria. So it has to start with education first of all. That's mine.
All right, Olamide, I'll come back to you on some of these things that you mentioned. And Michael Honey joins us. Oh, he's gone up again. But Fatu, let me just come to you. Olamide is harping on the fact that a lot of investment has to be done, first of all, in awareness, in creating awareness, and secondly, in building capacity within the institution that conducts elections in Nigeria. But what do you think about technology? How do you think we can deploy technology in the conduct of future elections?
First of all, I think that technology offers a range of benefits to the conduct of administration in the electoral processes. If you are going to be bringing conduct of the electoral process, you have to make sure that the decision making around that process is as transparent as possible. It is as consultative as possible. And like Lamide said, there has to be education. Because I remember just when the card readers were meant to be deployed to most of these rural communities, most people there were told that, if you put your hand on the card reader, it sucks your blood, so do not use it. So a lot of it also has to do with education, especially in most of these communities, because sometimes we tend to take for granted what technology in elections really is, not knowing that there are different facets to deploying technology for elections. So you have people just saying, okay, how can we make elections better in Nigeria? And the first thing they say is, oh, e-voting. Like e-voting is going to solve all the problems. But if you don't start from the scratch and start dealing with the manual processes, educating the public, consulting people on the best ways to deploy this technology, and also just making it as transparent as possible and as open as possible so that people, voters, citizens can understand what this technology is meant to do for them and how it can aid the conduct of the elections and how that will make their lives easier down the line. You cannot just decide to say, okay, we're going to have e-voting in the next elections, and then nobody understands it. I think there's a lot that has to do with understanding how the deployment of the candidates and the permanent voters card worked out in the previous elections, and seeing how lessons can be learned from that in terms of deploying any other kind of future technology in the elections. There has to be education. You have to really talk to people, voters that are in the field, because we all say this all the time, elections are really local. They all start locally. And for the way that we've been conducting elections in Nigeria for a really long time, we realize that everything starts local. Most of them are the ones that actually come out to vote. That's why most of the time you see that politicians actually focus their attention on grassroots voters, because they know they are the ones that come out to vote. Maybe sometimes they might decide to engage with young people on social media just to say that, okay, let them just take this box and say, we've checked that, we've engaged with them. But they really go locally. So if you want to be able to deploy technology in elections successfully in Nigeria, you have to also start locally, educating the people about this election, what this technology is going to be, how it's going to aid in making the conduct of the elections better, and how it will be deployed, and have to make it as transparent as possible. So I think those are the kind of things that have to be looked at before we even talk about deploying any kind of technology for elections at all.
Okay, very well. But while you were talking, you made mention of e-voting, and a lot of people will begin to wonder if you're talking about e-voting. They're thinking of how they can get people in the diaspora. That's one, and also they're thinking of, okay, for instance, I am from Adamawa State, but I live in Lagos State. How can I vote for my representatives now, so to speak, for my local government in the State House of Assembly, and also my representative in the lower chamber, that's in the National Assembly, as well as the upper chamber? I mean, these are other areas that people will be looking at and hoping that INEC will be looking at. What do you think we can do in that aspect?
I think, first of all, we should also know that this decision doesn't necessarily rest on INEC alone. It also has a lot to do with the National Assembly. I know that in the previous administration, amongst all the things that they really wanted to achieve in making the elections better, electronic voting was also one of it, and getting people to be able to vote from the diaspora was also one of it. But there were other challenges that needed to be.
Okay, we're having issues with your audio. Can you come again?
Can you hear me?
All right, we can hear you now. There's a bit of buzz going on when you talk.
Okay.
Yeah.
There were other challenges that had to be dealt with during the last administration. So, for example, people from the diaspora voting and e-voting was not really at the forefront. But now, the new administration has definitely shown commitment to making sure that technology is a part of electoral process going forward. But I think one of the things that also has to happen is also engagement with the National Assembly. They believe that these things have to happen, that to make our elections better, we have to find a way to deploy some sort of technology, and also make sure that Nigerian citizens everywhere, whichever part of the world that they are in, can also be able to vote in the process. But yeah, they say these things, and it sounds good, and it makes for good sound bites, but how committed are they really? And with all the engagement that the Electoral Commission, civil society organizations has had with the National Assembly in terms of making this work, has just shown little to no progress really, because for some of them, I should say, they actually feel that if they pass this law, it's going to affect them somehow, because most of them know the way that they got into office in the first place. So that if you're sitting there and telling them, oh, these are all these great things that technology can do for our elections, can make them more open, make them more transparent, and all the other great things that technology can do for elections. And they're sitting there listening to you, but really at the back of their mind, they're thinking, okay, so I know the way I got into office. So if I go and deploy this thing, it's going to be, my own detriment, because there's a possibility that if I pass this law today, I might not get back into office the next time. So there are other things, there are things like that for them to consider. So it also shows a certain lack of commitment to make them to passing these laws. But like I said, this is not INEC's responsibility head on in terms of passing these laws. It also has to do with the National Assembly. And as much as there's engagement with INEC, when the public to INEC, civil society organizations, INEC, it also has to be the same thing with the National Assembly as well, because people tend to forget that it's a law that has to be passed. Right now, e-voting is prohibited by law. So no matter what INEC tries to do, it's not just a decision that they can make by themselves. I mean, we saw the hassle when it came to deploying card readers for the elections, and this was just mainly for accreditation purposes, not even voting at all. And you could see the conversation and the debates that we just had around deploying card readers for accreditation purposes alone. So you can imagine when you decide to start having that conversation about e-voting as well. So I think people really need to look at the National Assembly to make sure that we have all the steps in place to make for the laws, the diaspora laws for people in other countries be able to vote, and also incorporating e-voting into our electoral system. So it's not just only looking at INEC, we have to look at the National Assembly and INEC as well.
You're saying that it doesn't lie solely on INEC, but Lamide, you were kind of smiling when Fatu was going on and on, talking about how it is not only INEC's responsibility to ensure that all these technologies are deployed into the electoral system of Nigeria. But why were you smiling? Were you agreeing with her?
I was agreeing with her, and I agree with the fact that legislation has to be very, very thorough. Like as we can see, even from the judgments from Supreme Court that tribunals that we have heard and seen so far, there has been little recognition for the card readers. Do you understand? Most of the courts didn't, see them as they are not in the Nigerian constitution, and there are no laws guiding the use of card readers. So right now, INEC might just still be test running according to the courts of law. And I also think that we have a long way to go. You asked if you could, okay, you are from Adamawa and you want to vote from Lagos, but Nigeria has a big issue with data. We don't have a data bank. We don't even know how many people, we don't even know our accurate population. We're just guessing over 160 million today, over 170 million. And every day we're doing biometric data, biometric registration for this. So we need to put this data together. And Nigeria is a data center. We don't have that. INEC doesn't. I'm sure that by the next election, those who registered or I didn't get my PVC last time. I don't know if I would ever get one. I'm sure that those who want to re-register in Edo and Ondo State would still need to, those who would vote in Edo and Ondo State would still need to re-register. Some will still need to re-register to get their PVCs and all that. So a lot of logistics flop from INEC, and most importantly, data gathering. And it's not just enough for INEC to gather data. There has to also be data protection laws. Data privacy. Those that registered in 2007, their details were being sold all over for ₦1 per number. I hope you get what I'm saying. So I need to be able to, INEC needs to assure me that, look, when you register, your data is safe with us. No one is going to sell it. No one is going to buy it from us and all that. So a lot needs, and it has to do with legislation and putting laws in place. I can't just, I'm over putting my fingers on biometric machines, trying to get my data all the time and having nothing to show for it, because the elections will still not go the way that they ought to go, and then my data that I have gathered becomes useless. So we need INEC needs to do more, and like Fatu said, it's beyond INEC. INEC needs to get stakeholders together from different agencies, and something about these government agencies that they all want to be the first to do this, so they don't want to collaborate. So you need more collaboration for NIMC, from CBN to INEC. Everyone needs to come together and stop getting and buying biometric equipment up and down. So we need to gather good data, and then we need data privacy laws, and legislation from National Assembly is also very key. Unfortunately, the group of legislators we have now are not so encouraging, and we haven't seen the change from them. So we're hoping that they will enact good laws for this.
Well, let's keep that hope burning and let's keep it alive. Olamide, you're agreeing with Fatu on some of the things she said, but while we're making that, Ben Cosmos joined us. Ben, good afternoon. Thanks for coming on board.
Yeah, good afternoon.
All right, thank you. There's too much light behind you, so it's bouncing on the camera and we can't see you very well. Can you maybe do a 360 or reduce the light, or probably face the light so that we can get a good... Okay, no, it's not too okay. All right, this is a bit better. Let's just work with what we have, even though we can make it better. But let me just get your take. I mean, a lot of water has gone under the bridge before you joined the Hangout. We're talking about how technology can be deployed in the conduct of future elections in Nigeria, and Fatu earlier and Olamide, they spoke extensively on some things, including awareness, investment in INEC staff, awareness to the general public, especially those in the rural areas, and then they also spoke about legislation, which is a very, very key aspect if technology will be eventually deployed to aid conduct of elections. But what do you make of it? I mean, there's been a lot going on. You seem to be in a country where technology has actually changed a lot of things. What do you think we should be doing? How do you think technology can come in to help us in the conduct of future elections in Nigeria?
Yeah, I think my take on this is technology is the key in the modern day election in the modern day country now, because if we can use technology, we'll find that a lot of things we do with manpower will stop doing them. We can conduct this election in the next 24 hours and we'll begin to collect our results everywhere. So, but one of the problems we have in this country is that we don't start from the root. We just come and jump into issues and without knowing the normal basis. And this is really, really affecting us. And one of the problems we are facing now is the national identity registration with your ID card stuff. I mean, not everybody have a national ID card, and that is why this is really, really affecting us, because we don't have a complete database of every Nigerian, and this is what we are lacking seriously. If we can get a very good database and every Nigerian has an ID card with a chip, I think this will go a long way, and this will make things a bit more easier for every Nigerian to come out and vote and cast his or her vote. And secondly, the card reader issue and the card reader stuff, and that just happened was, I would just call it a test run for these elections. But I think they should go back to the drawing board. Let every Nigerian have his or her own national identity card with a chip attached to it. I mean, this will also help, and this will boost the image of Nigeria, both international and local. Everybody can come out with the use of technology, with the use of the card reader, and the kind of card reader they are bringing to us. It's very, very unfortunate that the companies that brought these card readers, we are not asking them for a refund for those card readers that are not working. It's so unfortunate that we just allow everything to go, and the money that has been spent on that, for me, it's totally a disgrace and embarrassing. But let me say, this is a test run for us. But technology has a long way to go for a country like Nigeria. If we can get the primary things, like getting every Nigerian with a national identity card with a chip, this will help also. This will help also to curtail the issue of, people losing their card reader, or instead of using the card reader, you use your ID card, your national ID card will come in place will come in place of the card reader so that you can be able to cast your vote electronically, where when you thumbprint, you will not be able to thumbprint again. I mean, once you thumbprint and your data and your fingerprint is taken and from your national ID card is transferred and is transmitted to the database, you will, I think this will help, this will go a long way, and results will be collected immediately. The manipulation of results, writing of results, you will totally eliminate all those fraudulent activities that normally happen, ballot box snatching and all that. All these things will end overnight. So I believe technology is the key that we all have to be into it. But let us do it in a normal way. Let us not just jump into issues without knowing, without going from the grassroots. And also, I want to state here.
Sorry to cut you short. Do you know about the National Identity Management Commission?
Yeah, I know about it, but the whole system is not working the way it's supposed to work. Seriously, this is where our problem lies in, and this is why when the BVN comes up, when the bank verification exercise is coming up, this is also giving us so much headache that every system you want to come back and register over and over again, and with your national ID card, you can do all these things within a couple of just 5 minutes is okay for you. That shows that you're a Nigerian, and you cannot just have it. Not everybody can have it. Before you get it, your biometric, your database is there, your blood group is there, your fingerprint is there. Every information about you is just there. So you can work with it in the bank. You can use it for anything. I mean, you're driving, and it just once you have that card alone, you can be able to do any other thing. You know, going back. The bank coming up with this, the election is coming up with another voters card. You see, this is we are compiling issues, making things more difficult for Nigerians. And each time you do this, we lose a lot of money.
All right, but then I'll come back to you on some of these things. Fatu, let me just come to you. Ben is raising some issues, you know, especially some of the hiccups that can be faced when technology is deployed. But I mean, of course, I agree with him because. It is not a stroll. It's just not a stroll in the park. There are the downside of these things, as we saw. Even the former president, his card wasn't recognized at a point when he went to get accredited and all that. What could all this? What could we do to avoid stuff like this?
To begin with. Whenever you are deploying technology for the first time, it's always going to come with challenges, especially if you have to deploy it for a large number of people, which was what we really had. There was a pilot test for the card readers just before the elections where they used it in some of the states in Nigeria just to make sure that it was going to work well and to see the kind of issues that it's had and see how those issues could have been resolved before the elections. But still, even with that, again, I think what also affected the use of card readers was the fact that there was no... The education for the corpers that handled the card readers was maybe like 75%, and then they had some issues where most of the corpers had to be substituted at the last minute. So you had people that were learning about the card readers at the last minute. And I remember, if you remember, on election day, there was this particular information that started going around about the fact that the card readers were not reading people's fingerprints. And then somebody now came out to say, okay, that the issue was the fact that they didn't take out the protective film. So that was the message that started circulating. If you are at any police station that has issues with card readers authenticating your fingerprints, tell the copper to remove the protective film and it will start working. So you can imagine that during their training, this was probably the first thing that they learned during the training. But then you go into the field, maybe it was not the person it was not the same person that was present at the training, or maybe the person just forgot, or who knows what the reason could have been. And you get to the polling unit, and then you forget to take off the first thing that you should do, which is the protective film, so that people can be authenticated. But we saw that was one of the challenges. And when they decided to do the postmortem on how the technology that was deployed, which was the card reader, fared at the end of the day, I think the general realization was that a lot more could have been done in terms of educating people, voter education, and one of the things again is that when it also comes to voter education, there's also that burden of whose responsibility is it to educate voters. So is it just the Electoral Commission's responsibility? Is it the responsibility or is it a shared responsibility? So does the political parties have a role to play in that? Do civil society organizations have a role to play in that? Do schools have a role to play in that? Recently, I was reading somewhere about this project that they did in South Africa, where they tried to make electoral processes part of their curriculum, especially for young people that were just going to be eligible to vote. And it was really interesting to me because by the time you start teaching people at a young age about the electoral processes, that it's not so foreign to them when it's time for them to actually vote. So you have, anytime elections come around and there are measures to make elections better, you have maybe politicians that go and tell just the people that they expect to come out to vote for them how this should be used. Or maybe they don't even tell you that, or they start giving you instructions on how you should say no to this new technology that they're trying to deploy. When you spend so much time trying to get people to say no to technology that they're trying to deploy, then by the time that technology goes ahead to be deployed, then you cannot teach them about how to use it. Then you start telling them things like, oh, it sucks blood, so do not use it. And then you actually lose, a cross-section of your supporters with that kind of strategy. So, and I saw a lot of civil society organizations also play a role in training Nigerians and citizens, training observers, also having some kind of collaboration with youth corps to see how they could support the Electoral Commission to support the training of these people. But really, again, I think it also has to do with Nigerians as well, because you have when they decided to make the deployment of people that were going to work for elections open, we could see that people that belong to political parties were also signing up to be a part of this thing. Whatever their reasons might be, you don't know. And we saw time without number on social media about corpers that were in the field pledging allegiance to a particular political party and saying that as far as they're in this particular place, that candidate had to win. So by the time you have people like that in these places trying to make elections better, but instead having their own interests, then it just, you can start seeing how the elections might go wrong just from the beginning. So, it has a lot to do with people, education of the people that are going to be doing work in the elections, and also just trying to see how it could be consultative. So you're not just doing it with an isolated group. You make sure that different people actually know what it is that you're trying to do as well.
Okay, very well. We're actually running out of time, but just before we go, let me come to you now. Fatu raised the issue of social media, during the conduct of the last elections. What role? We saw the role it played in the last elections, but how intensive do you think the role the social media will be in the next in the coming elections?
Yeah, I think
quickly too.
Yeah,
okay.
Social media will play. It played a very significant role, and to play more very important roles in the coming elections. We have to give it to the electoral body, INEC. They went. I would commend them for the way they used social media to get information from people, from voters, and it's going to come a long way. And it still boils down to voters' education. So even most people who use social media still do not know what to do when they get to so they're just giving updates, and INEC needs to speak more. We don't have to wait till the elections in Edo State, and we don't have to wait till like 1 month to the elections to start telling people what to expect. And it should not just be, technology is not just about sitting on social media. You need to go to the rural areas. You need to show them videos. You need to, there are people who, technology is not just online. In the rural areas, people still use Bluetooth, to transfer videos to themselves, music. INEC needs to do more to go there, to use various means apart from the internet. The internet is not just technology to get information. If it is music, if it is audio, if it is videos they can watch to know what to do and what not to do, it will go a long way. So like Fatu said, a lot of stakeholders have to be involved: the civil society, the technology agencies, programmers, and all that. And INEC should look inward. We shouldn't just go and export technology from outside. There are people who can do these things here in Nigeria, and we should encourage them more. And another thing, finally, is that we need to get logistics right. Logistics is always, we're always hearing that, oh, these are ready, and at the 9 minutes, some can get boats to get to where there's no road and all that. So INEC needs to really get logistics right for technology to work.
All right, very well. Thank you for that, Fatu. Let me also come back to you. Olamide dropped her final statement while she was reacting to the question I asked earlier. So what would be your final statement just before we wrap up this conversation?
My final statement would be that as much as we look to the Electoral Commission to make sure that we have e-voting laws passed and people from the diaspora also voting, we should also try as much as possible to engage the National Assembly to make sure that we have a good balance of people that we're engaging to see that we are able to have these laws passed at the end of the day, and also to make sure that when it comes to voter education is always going to be important. It's always going to be that thing that will determine the success of the elections, because the more people are educated, the more possibilities it is that the elections will be conducted better. And also I don't even really think we have a problem with participation in Nigeria. You have other countries that have serious issues with getting voters to the polls, but we are always very enthusiastic when it comes to going to vote. But then we get riddled with challenges, like you can't even get a permanent voter's card, you can't even get registered, and then that's turns people away from the process. So I think, like Lamide said, in terms of logistics, the Electoral Commission has to get that right, so Nigerians are able to have their permanent voter's card and are able to vote. And also, technology is important. It's going to do really great things for elections, and I think we are at that place where we should start talking about really incorporating big technology in our elections. So as much as we talk to the Electoral Commission, we should also hold our legislators accountable and make them pass those laws that will make our elections better.
Thank you very much, Fatu. Ben, let me also come to you to get your last word before we wrap up. Go ahead, Ben.
Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you.
I think what I have to say here is, my sister has talked about the logistics. Logistics has always been a problem
Let's make it quick, please.
Yeah, logistics has always been a problem, especially in the riverine areas, the Niger Delta areas. I think everything starts from the man on top there, and to the resident electoral commissioners we have in our state. So if they shouldn't wait for 2 days, 1 week before the elections. I mean, if we must get the 2019 elections, the 2019 elections coming up, if we must get it right, we must start now. We must start now to begin to make adequate and proper preparation for the elections. Whatsoever techniques we're going to use, we'll start by now. We'll have to start now to destroy all the facilities we're going to use. Everything we want to do on that election day to make sure that election becomes a success. Go back to the drawing board, check our database. Like I just said, the national identity card is the key to this issue. This thing will resolve the whole problem. The issue of coming up every year, coming to get a voter's card. All these things, you will eliminate them, and also the issue of ballot box snatching that has been the characteristics of our own elections. E-voting system will eliminate all these things, and electoral fraud will be reduced by over 70%. So that when you cast a vote, the issue of going to cast a vote, going there in the morning, but by 11 o'clock, you are still there waiting to still cast your vote. All these things will die off. The system is there. We have the manpower. All we need to do is just to employ the right people. I don't mind if you want to go search for foreigners to do this thing for us, but as long as we will get it right, it's okay. I believe we should begin to exploit, to use our advantage of Nigerians in diaspora. I think the diaspora is the key to all these issues there. Let's begin to tap into our own resources, Nigerians abroad, who knows about this whole thing, and all this boils down to IT, internet, and all the rest of electricity and all that. So if we can get this thing right from the beginning, right, starting from now, we will get it right in future. There's no doubt that our election has been going from better. Jiga did a very good job. Before this election, everybody became a mathematician collecting results. I was busy also collecting the result, and China did a wonderful job. So I think we can do better. We can do a lot more better than what we did in this last election.
All right. Thank you, Benjamin Cosmos. You're calling from Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia. Fatu Oguche, you're calling from Abuja in Nigeria. And Olamide, you're calling from Lagos in Nigeria as well. Thank you, three of you, for joining us this afternoon and sharing your thoughts on this very important issue. We hope to see you guys sometime again, and we hope to see you continue the promotion of deploying technology in the conduct of Nigeria's future elections. But that's how we wrap it up today on the program. My name is Victor Matthias, and once again, it is a Google Plus Hangout for Channels Beam.